Hey, what's up folks, how's it going? This is Watch. Hope you guys are all doing well, and today we're going to be doing a head-to-head camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Taking a look at the front-facing 4K video capturing capabilities on both these two devices. Now we're going to mainly focus on the rear array of cameras in the ultra-wide, as well as the telephoto capabilities of both stills and video, to see which one overall is the better overall smartphone when it comes to camera performance. Now we're going to be taking a look at a couple of different scenarios in outdoor, well-lit conditions, as well as more low-light situations in nighttime mode and things like that, to see again which one is the more versatile camera for both stills and video. So if you're interested in seeing which camera is best on both these two devices, let's get right into it. Now before we get into our camera comparison, I just want to briefly mention our sponsor, Cell Cashier, that made this content possible. Now, if you're looking to upgrade to the new generation iPhone or any other smartphone and have a used iPhone that you want to get rid of, Cell Cashier will actually buy your iPhone for the most competitive price. They operate only in the United States, but essentially you just pick whatever device you have, select the carrier, the storage capacity, and the overall condition, and Cell Cashier will give you a competitive quote. And if you're happy with that, you'll actually get a prepaid label where you can send off your iPhone and get paid. If you're interested to see how much you'll get for your iPhone, check out the description down below for more details. We want to thank Cell Cashier for making this content possible. Now, if we're to summarize the overall performance that we're getting out of the 13 Pro Max, I would say it's 98% the same as the previous generation phone, with the slight low light improvements on the main camera, the greater zoom capabilities with the 3x optical zoom instead of 2.5, as well as the ability to shoot macros, as well as some of the software upgrades, including cinema mode and the ability to shoot ProRes native in 4K 60 FPS. And in terms of how the 13 Pro Max stacks up against the S21 Ultra when it comes to the stills capabilities, firstly, in terms of general color rendition, vibrancy, dynamic range, both are very capable and similar in terms of those regards. In terms of actual sharpness and fine clarity, since we do have a 108 megapixel main camera on the S21 Ultra, you can certainly zoom in and see finer details compared to the 12 megapixel wide camera that we have on the 13 Pro Max. That being said, when you're shooting and posting your content on all the different social media platforms out there, most people are not going to tell the difference in terms of resolution when they're viewing it on their smartphone, tablet, or laptop display. Probably the biggest advantage the S21 Ultra has over the iPhone is its greater zoom capabilities, with the ability to zoom in 10 times optically with the 10 megapixel 240 millimeter periscope camera. You can really get some fine details from far away objects, and we can illustrate a couple of these examples fairly well. If you take a look at this BC Lions logo on the stadium on the side of the building, you can see that we can see a tremendous level of detail. It is a night and day difference when we actually digitally zoom into the iPhone to have the equivalent 10x shot over here. And you can also see a major difference on this building tower, where all the bricks and fine details are very well illustrated on the Samsung versus not so much on the 13 Pro Max. Now, both cameras have macro photography capabilities built in. On the 13 Pro Max, it actually uses the ultra-wide camera, which has a minimum focus distance down to 2 centimeters. You actually shoot macros automatically using the main 1x camera, and it uses the ultra-wide to actually autofocus into that object to get a close-up shot. On the S21 Ultra, you have a similar feature called Focus Enhancer, which essentially minimizes the focus distance, similar to the iPhone, so you can get closer in to your objects to get fine detailed shots. And in terms of the macro capabilities and performance, you can get a fairly comparable results on both platforms. One is really not better than the other in terms of macro photography. Now moving on to talk about the low light performance, specifically in night mode. Both devices deliver some impressive looking nighttime photography results, given the fact that these predictive algorithms to stabilize your long exposure nighttime shots. And the trend that we saw on the 12 Pro Max is pretty much carried on the 13 Pro Max, where the nighttime shots look very realistic, very similar to what you're going to see in reality. Comparatively to the S21 Ultra, you do see a little bit more noise in the darker portions of the image, particularly in the shadows. And if you take a look at the S21 Ultra, the exposure is 1 to 2 stops greater than the iPhone, so it's a brighter overall image. And you can definitely see more shadow details with less noise on the Samsung. And perhaps more impressively, as we've seen before on Samsung smartphones, it does a great job of preserving highlight information. Take a look at the park lamp over here, where you can see both in the highlights and shadow and structural components of the lamp are very well preserved on the S21 Ultra, versus much of that detail is lost on the iPhone. It's a lot more bloomy in the highlights, and we simply don't have the same level of information that's present on the S21 Ultra image. Moving forward in terms of video, even though the S21 Ultra can shoot 8K resolution video at 24 frames per second, in terms of the actual 4K video capturing capabilities, the iPhone is still the king of the video smartphones. With the 10-bit Dolby Vision coupled with the ProRes capturing capabilities on the upper storage configuration models, this is an absolute powerhouse of a video smartphone. And not only do we have a greater level of dynamic range compared to the Samsung, take a look at this image under the bridge in the shadow information, and in the highlights we have a ton more information in the video footage on the iPhone compared to the S21 Ultra. The S21 Ultra is definitely better in terms of daylight shooting conditions, but as soon as you get it in low light conditions, you're going to see a tremendous level of noise, and the video just becomes muddy compared to the performance that you're going to get with the iPhone, which is up there with almost a professional level video camera. Now, with the addition of the cinema mode on the iPhone 13, you can replicate that shallow depth of field look that's associated with a cinema style camera with a large sensor and a fast aperture lens. And now you can replicate things like rack focus, shallow depth of field, and all these things can be done autonomously or in post, which is pretty cool. But this is still a gimmick nonetheless. It shoots in 1080p, which is fine for online media publication, but this is still a fake shallow depth of field look. The sensor on the iPhone is still relatively small, as well as the lens. So if you want that real cinema look with that blurry bokeh background, you're still going to probably want to stick to a dedicated video camera that has a large image sensor and a fast aperture lens. But besides those notions, that's really it for this initial camera test. I would definitely say that from a stills perspective, the S21 Ultra has an edge up on the iPhone, particularly if you want a good zoom camera. However, if video functionality is more important to you, I would definitely say that the 13 Pro Max has a huge edge up on anything that Samsung or any other smartphone is coming to the table in terms of video functionality. So if that's important to you, probably the iPhone is the clear winner. In either case, I'd definitely love to know what you guys think of the 13 Pro Max. Do you think it's worth it to upgrade if you're coming from an older generation iPhone? And how do you think it will compare against the new S22 Ultra or potentially the new Note coming from Samsung, hopefully in the near future? Now, we're going to have a battery test coming up very, very soon to test out the 13 Pro Max against the other popular smartphones out there. So definitely make sure you have post notifications turned on, or check out the description down below for that video if that's available. Other than that, thanks to Cell Cashier for sponsoring this video, and we'll see you real soon in the next one. Take care.